After losing a court case to a wealthy husband, the taxi driver, with her little girl, hurried to another call. And hearing a conversation behind her from two customers, Evelyn's mood today was foul. Even as she drove, her attention was often diverted, gazing at the road rolling away like a ribbon into the distance. A yellow sedan with conspicuous checkers on the roof swayed along the highway, rocking side to side in rhythm with the road's unevenness, resembling a boat on small waves. Suddenly, her melancholic thoughts were interrupted by the voice of her 7-year-old daughter, Sophia, seated to her right in a special child seat. "Mom, are we going to work for a long time today?" "I'm already hungry," Sophia asked. "Not much longer. We'll finish one more order and then take a break for a snack." "Okay? Can you wait?" Evelyn asked hopefully. "Of course, I can wait. What did you bring for lunch today? Sandwiches or pancakes?" Sophia persisted. Evelyn mysteriously winked at her daughter. "I won't tell you, let it be a secret. I'm sure you'll like it." The little girl's face lit up with a sweet smile, the kind that all children in the world have without exception. Seeing this lovely scene warmed Evelyn's heart. So what if she lost the divorce case today? Let her husband drown in his wealth, they didn't need it anyway. Mentally agreeing with this sentiment, Evelyn smiled at her reflection in the rearview mirror and answered the dispatcher's call. "Bus station, 2 passengers, a man and a woman. They'll be waiting at the entrance." "I've already given your car's number to the clients," the dispatcher said with a well-modulated voice. "Got it, Mr. Johnson, thank you." "I'm actually not far from there," she replied and changed gear. Casting a glance at Sophia, Evelyn noticed that her daughter had fallen asleep. "She's tired, but it's okay, one more order and then a break," she reassured herself. Evelyn didn't like taking her daughter to work, but she had no other choice. The landlady of their rented house couldn't stand children and made that clear from the start. And her mother lived in the village, working on the local farm from dawn to dusk to support her younger disabled son. Evelyn's brother, Neil, used to work as a tractor driver, but after a road accident, he became permanently disabled and confined to a wheelchair. Her wife left her, and only Evelyn's sister and mother remained in her family. With all these responsibilities, there was no one else to entrust her little girl to, especially since Sophia always enjoyed mischief, requiring constant supervision. Evelyn immediately noticed the clients named by the dispatcher. There they were, standing somewhat forlornly, holding small travel bags. The couple appeared to be just over 30. Probably a family, Evelyn thought with a touch of envy and flashed her headlights at them. She refrained from honking, fearing to wake her daughter. Perhaps the child would get some more sleep if the passengers turned out to be quiet. Evelyn's intuition didn't fail her. The couple politely greeted her and settled comfortably in the back, quietly closing the door without the usual clang, which Evelyn appreciated. Good customers. They treat the car with respect, not banging the doors for no reason, she thought. Seeing the sleeping baby up front, the strangers noticeably hushed and switched to whispers. "To the hotel, please." "What's the cheapest one you have?" the man asked in a hushed tone. Evelyn nodded understandingly. "All right, we'll do that. There's one called Agatha. Good service, reasonable prices. I lived there with my daughter for some time too." "Thank you very much, we're grateful," the passenger chimed in. At some point, silence fell in the car. Evelyn had been in her profession for years, adept at adapting to clients. If a talkative one came along, she had several signature stories ready on any topic, funny, sad, long, short. And if a silent one appeared, Evelyn maintained neutrality, enjoying the steady hum of the engine or the soft music. This time, she didn't turn on the radio, let Sophia sleep a little longer, maybe she'd wake up refreshed. Meanwhile, the passengers behind started a quiet conversation. Evelyn was used to this and usually let their talk slide, but this time, she couldn't. Primarily because they mentioned her surname Hunter. Well, not her own, but her husband Noah's surname. Evelyn felt a bit embarrassed by this surname, considering it unsuitable for a woman. But what could she do? She made her choice at the registry office. The man spoke first. So, is everything ready on your end? Will Hunter definitely hire us? The woman hesitated for a moment, then said, yes, don't worry, I've thought it all through. I'll get a job as a cleaner in his office, and you'll keep an eye on him from the side. This time, Noah won't wriggle out. I bet he won't survive such a blow. Surprised, Evelyn hit the brakes, causing her yellow car to stop dead in its tracks. The passengers grew visibly anxious, while Evelyn regained her composure. Well, she certainly had reflexes. Thankfully, there was no one behind her, or she'd be in trouble. Sophia, however, remained oblivious to her mother's maneuver, still sweetly asleep in her car seat. What's wrong? Why did we stop? The man asked. Evelyn quickly pulled herself together and replied, oh, nothing to worry about, everything's fine. Just a pothole up ahead, so I stopped to go around it. The passenger shook his head doubtfully but refrained from further comments. Meanwhile, Evelyn couldn't think of anything else for the remainder of the journey except the conversation between these two strange passengers. At first, she even thought the conversation was about some other hunter. But when the woman mentioned her husband Noah's name, everything fell into place. Unsure of what to do with this information, Evelyn pondered. Of course, she immediately understood that something sinister was being plotted against her ex-husband. But what could she personally do in such a situation? Warn the scoundrel who left them practically penniless with their daughter? Or refuse to comply with her conscience and accept things as they were? She didn't know the answer to this question. Meanwhile, the hotel complex appeared ahead, and the passengers prepared to pay for the ride. The woman, who paid for both, took out a worn-out wallet from her purse and handed Evelyn a couple of bills. Slightly more than the amount that needed to be paid. Here, take it, no need for change, buy something for the little one. She's just adorable, a real doll. Evelyn smiled awkwardly and thanked the customer for the tip. It wasn't much, but it felt nice. Watching the strangers go with her eyes, she started the engine and drove further to their favorite spot by the riverbank, where she and Sophia always had snacks. Despite herself, Evelyn's thoughts kept returning to Noah, who won the divorce case against her. And everything would have been fine, he won, so be it. No alimony or share of the business, so let him rejoice. Evelyn didn't need that. But the house. They bought the house with their joint money. Evelyn's mother also contributed her share to the joint venture. She saved up for several years to give her daughter a wedding gift. A real gift, not just payment for the event, as some parents did. Martha knew firsthand what hard times were like and wanted to give her daughter the best. Not millions, of course, but still not a few pennies. But Noah reasoned differently and simply forgot during the divorce that the house was bought with joint funds. He greased the right palms, forged documents, and voila, the scheme was a success. To be honest, Evelyn didn't expect her husband to treat her and their daughter so harshly. Not only did he have no intention of paying any alimony, but he also took the house. Evelyn was stunned by the unexpectedness of it all. But Noah's lawyer promptly presented the court with documents confirming a DNA test to verify Noah's paternity of their daughter Sophia. Wait, what test? When did you manage to do it? What is even happening? Don't such cases require the mother's consent? Evelyn exclaimed. In response, the judge called for silence and began to examine the papers. Naturally, the test was fake, and Evelyn understood it perfectly well. After all, Sophia could only have one father, Noah, and no one else. But the businessman's lawyer earned his keep and quickly concocted a fake document. The calculation was based on Evelyn's surprise and ignorance of the laws. She thought she was going to court for a divorce and alimony, but it turned out she not only lost the house, but also the payments for her daughter. No, the child benefit remained, of course, but Evelyn and Sophia couldn't rely on anything else anymore. For Noah, it was a moment of personal triumph. With a malicious grin, he kissed his mistress in front of Evelyn and began to coo with her like an enamored peacock. He lacked only feathers and a magnificent tail, but otherwise, he was just like one. Tears streamed down Evelyn's cheeks. Her husband's betrayal wounded her to the core. And how do you even live with yourself? Depriving your wife and child of a roof over their heads. How will you even look at yourself in the mirror after this? Shame on you. Noah smirked. Oh, come on, don't guilt trip me. Evelyn, enough, we've been through this already. Living with you is simply impossible, no wit, no imagination. It's just dullness all around. But with Mia, I feel alive, my blood boils. That's what a real woman is like. Not like you from the backwoods. At that moment, Evelyn suddenly wanted to slap the scoundrel, but she had to restrain herself. People were around, and what would it change? You can't fix a crooked stick. Trying to shake off the intrusive vision, Evelyn wiped her eyes with her hand and refocused on the road. She enjoyed listening to the steady hum of the engine and controlling the car as if she were part of a unified whole. Evelyn learned to drive back in elementary school when her grandfather began to trust her with the wheel of his old car. Naturally, Louis was always nearby, monitoring every move of his granddaughter. And though her grandpa was now in heaven, she fondly remembered his teachings. She learned not only to skillfully drive a car, but also to distinguish by sound various malfunctions and nuances of engine operation. Now, returning from a call, Evelyn felt that something was definitely off with the car. Nothing critical, of course, but it wouldn't hurt to stop by the repair shop after her shift. At that moment, Sophia, who was sitting in her child's seat, woke up and smiled at her mom. "Mom, are we done already? Can we take a break?" Evelyn smiled back. "Absolutely right, we'll take a break. We'll stop by the riverbank, not far from the beach, and have lunch." Hooray! Finally! I'm so hungry already. Had breakfast in the morning, but I'm hungry again. Evelyn patted her daughter's shoulder. "Well, you're growing up. You know, girls always outgrow boys faster. So, your body demands fuel. All right then. You'll see what I've prepared for you." Evelyn brought not only pancakes but also sandwiches for the snack, creating a kind of mix of her daughter's favorite foods. And the pancakes were not simple, they had honey added, giving them a spicy flavor with the nuts mixed in. With an appetite, Sophia enjoyed her lunch, gazing at the river and admiring people swimming, sunbathing, and fishing a little further down among the reeds. However, the sight of the river didn't bring joy to Evelyn today. Her mind was elsewhere, still unable to decide what to do with the information she had received. Naturally, taking such news to the police was quite a task. What would she tell the officer? That she overheard someone planning to work as a cleaner in her ex-husband's company, while another was supposed to keep an eye on her? Yes, it was laughable. Evelyn paused for a moment, then realized she indeed needed to share this information with someone else. The best choice was her time-tested friend Rose, who always found the right answer in difficult situations. Though sometimes Rose could be quite stubborn and stood her ground to the end. During their previous conversation, she strongly insisted that Evelyn file a lawsuit again and conduct an independent DNA test, thereby confirming the relationship between Noah and Sophia. Evelyn sighed sadly. "Well, why do I need this, Rose? You understand, I don't want to see him, let alone be near him. And I don't need his money. Do you think it will bring me happiness? I lived with him side by side all these years, only suffered. And Noah, always on business trips, late returns, endless excuses." Rose nodded understandingly. "Yes, it's all clear as day. Men, they're all the same. Especially those with money. As soon as they get it, their heads get dizzy. It's as if some calculator starts working in their brains, turning all the beauties of the city into potential mistresses. Each one has her price tag attached to her dress." Evelyn forced a smile. Rose's position had long been clear to her, as she, like Evelyn, had once gone through a painful divorce. However, her husband wasn't wealthy, and unlike Noah, he left for a wealthy mistress due to abject poverty. Later, he regretted it several times and even tried to come back, but Rose couldn't forgive the betrayal and slammed the door in her former lover's face. After waiting for her daughter to finish lunch, Evelyn called the dispatcher and said she wouldn't be taking any more orders for the day. Mr. Johnson understood, as he himself used to be a taxi driver and now used a wheelchair after an accident. Everyone knew that Evelyn rarely ended her day earlier than required. And if she did, there was a good reason for it. Initially, when Evelyn joined their transportation company, she couldn't get anything but mockery from her colleagues. The owner of the firm had never dealt with a female driver before and decided to test her. He gave her the oldest car they had at that time. As expected, driving it was simply impossible. Breakdowns followed one after another, so Evelyn had to spend time in the workshops, elbow deep in oil and grease, helping the mechanic repair the assigned car. To her credit, the young taxi driver never complained about her fate. She accepted with humility what was given to her. Evelyn didn't have her own car, otherwise, she would have gone to private companies. Meanwhile, she could only rely on the help and support of the garage director. Unbeknownst to herself, Evelyn improved her repair skills and soon could fix minor breakdowns herself. And after a while, her old car began to bring a decent income to the owner since it practically never broke down. Many taxi drivers envied Evelyn, not understanding the secret of her success. As it turned out, it was all quite simple: hard work, diligence, and admirable perseverance. Additionally, unlike most female taxi drivers, Evelyn wasn't afraid to take male clients and always kept a canister of pepper spray handy, just in case. It's worth mentioning to the credit of the passengers that she had never encountered any outright scoundrels. More often than not, tipsy men behaved flirtatiously, confessing their love to Evelyn, but it never went beyond that. She simply smiled, always responding with marked politeness and never escalating the situation. Furthermore, Evelyn was indifferent to tips, although she still received them. Unfortunately, the lion's share of these funds went towards renting a house, as Evelyn and her daughter were left without a roof over their heads. Mrs. Milton, their landlord, was a peculiar woman, and Evelyn never quite felt comfortable around her. From time to time, she would voice her grievances and try to increase the rent, aiming to profit off the young taxi driver. However, the woman had no idea that Evelyn's earnings weren't as substantial as she thought. After all, as a divorced single mother, her daughter was growing up, and she also dreamed of buying her own car and starting her own private transportation business. The male taxi drivers only laughed. "You're making a mistake wanting to go solo, Evelyn. You'll just wreck the car, and what's the point? Sure, you'll have to give up a portion of your income, but at least you'll have some transportation. And if anything happens, insurance will cover all possible expenses. But when you're working for yourself, it's much tougher," they said. But she knew she wanted freedom and dreamed of a more convenient schedule than the one she had now. Finally, after Sophia finished eating, Evelyn handed her a pack of wet wipes to clean her hands. Then she got behind the wheel and started the engine. "Mom, where are we going now? Back to work again?" Sophia asked. You couldn't be more wrong," Evelyn said mysteriously. "We're going to visit Aunt Rose. I've already called her, she'll be waiting for us. And there, you can play with Nick on his game console or kick a ball around in the yard while we chat." Sophia's eyes lit up with joy. "Wow, that's a real treat. You're making me happy all day today. You made such a delicious lunch, and now we're going to visit. And she always keeps those tasty candies in a bowl." Evelyn forced a smile, realizing that her daughter was clearly missing out on treats because they constantly had to economize. Like any smart woman, the young mother understood the lion's share of their income went towards rent. On the other hand, they couldn't just live under the open sky. Yes, and their own car was needed like air. As became clear after 10 minutes, Rose was already waiting for her mother and daughter to visit, setting out treats on the table and pouring fragrant bergamot tea into cups. However, Sophia didn't touch her tea because she immediately went to play with Rose's son. Nick had plenty of toys, so the girl, accustomed to Spartan conditions, was ready to play with cars, soldiers, and even shoot with a toy gun. "Well, Evelyn, spill it. What's bothering you?" I don't think you finished work early just to see me again, Rose squinted, asking. Evelyn blushed embarrassedly. She couldn't hide anything from her perceptive friend. In fact, Rose immediately understood that something was wrong with Evelyn. Yeah, how to put it, Rose? I don't even know where to start. Rose frowned. She had never seen her friend like this before. Usually, Evelyn either blurted out everything she was thinking or held onto it until next time, digesting the problem internally. But today she was behaving extremely strangely. Sipping her bitter tea, Rose decided to wait for her friend to open up by herself. Fortunately, Evelyn didn't keep her in suspense and got to the point. Listening, Rose shook her head and couldn't believe that such things were possible in life. At the end of the story, she propped her chin on her hand and asked, So, what are you going to do next? I hope you're not planning to tell your ex about the danger he's in. Frankly, I don't think they can eliminate him in the literal sense of the word. Most likely, it's about robbery or something else. However, taking down slippery fish like your Noah barehanded is still not a guarantee of success. So, it's far from certain that this couple will succeed. Evelyn sighed sadly. Oh, I don't know, Rose, whether to speak or not. You see, my conscience is bothering me. It's understandable, of course. No one said there shouldn't be retribution in life, but as they say, judge not, lest ye be judged. Maybe these people are planning a serious crime, and by my silence, I become their tacit accomplice. Rose waved her hands in protest. Come on, girlfriend. What kind of debate are you starting here? What's there to think about? Your husband left you and Sophia without a home and money. And he even disgraced you in front of the whole town. And you're wondering whether to keep silent or not. Where's your pride? Just imagine how he's laughing at you now. Evelyn shook her head doubtfully. Deep down, something prevented her from betraying her ex-husband. If she wanted, she could make a huge scene. But she always did things honestly, demonstratively, not secretly, like Noah did to her. You know, Rose, I haven't decided anything yet. But I think I'll still tell him the truth. And then let him decide what to do next. Maybe it'll be my mistake, but I think I'm doing the right thing. Otherwise, I'll just lose my peace. My heart's already not in its place, and what's next? What if something happens to Noah? No, this isn't for me. He'd better know that he's in danger, and then he'll have to use his own head. He's not a fool, he'll figure it out. Rose sighed disappointingly. Well, darling, you're definitely not one to bend the rules. You're too moral, too honest. You know, life doesn't always require acting according to your conscience. Sometimes you have to be cunning, otherwise you won't survive. The insatiable sharks will devour you, and you, like a child, are utterly defenseless. Can you believe you managed to lose your daughter's alimony because of some fake documents? Couldn't you have arranged for another DNA test? I suggested a good lawyer to you, but you insisted on doing it yourself. And now, here's the result. Her friend's words struck a chord with Evelyn. But what could she do, raised to be this way? Her grandmother was a school teacher and always held in high regard. Her mother still worked on the farm, her income was honest, legal. Just like her late father and brother. Lies and deceit, they always surface eventually. No matter how much you try to hide them, the truth will come out. After lingering a little longer at Rose's, Evelyn bid her farewell, feeling disheartened. Sophia followed obediently, increasingly silent, sensing her mother's sour mood. Meanwhile, in Noah Hunter's office, a completely different scene was unfolding. Seeing the new cleaner at the door of his office, the director smirked at the prospective employee. Well, with such appetizing curves and a resume like that, I think we'll get along just fine. But let me warn you up front, I don't tolerate any absences, maternity leaves, or other nonsense. The job is tough, but doesn't require much mental effort. Pays on time, 1 vacation per year. And with beneficial cooperation, there's a 13th month salary. So, I suggest you take a serious look at our firm. The new cleaner's name was Catherine, and the office staff immediately noticed her manner of dress and exquisite manicure on her delicate, pianist-like fingers. Nah, she looks more like a mannequin or a model. Look at how she walks, swaying her hips as if on a catwalk, someone whispered. As it's well known, women can't hide anything from each other, especially when working side by side. Regarding matters of beauty and dressing style, Noah was taken with Catherine at first sight. When he saw her, he forgot all about his mistress Mia, for whom he left his wife and got tangled in this mess with the house and alimony. Mia wasn't in the office at the moment. Therefore, Catherine could use her charms as she saw fit. Smiling, she sat on the edge of a chair and looked at the director with eyes he could easily drown in. Then, Catherine fluttered her lashes coquettishly, causing the businessman's heart to skip a beat. Tell me, do you offer any prospects for career advancement? You know, to move up from being a cleaner? Not right away, of course, but maybe in a month or two, she asked, licking her lips with the tip of her tongue. At the sound of her voice, Noah broke into a sweat. Unwillingly, he reached for his tie to loosen it and breathed in the cool, conditioned air. Actually, we don't have provisions for a cleaner. But if you need, I can make adjustments. Though, I'll need your full commitment in return. I think you understand what I mean, Noah replied, his voice trembling with excitement. Talking to Catherine made him feel like a schoolboy, a high schooler going on a date with an experienced beauty for the first time. Catherine looked into his eyes again, almost without blinking, as if she had no pupils, only blue lakes or azure skies instead. Well, thank you for your help, Mr. Hunter. I'll take your wishes into account and hope not to disappoint you, Catherine sang with the same languid voice and gracefully walked out of the office. Noah's heart beat wildly like a fish caught in a net. At that moment, he was ready to leave Mia here and now for this beauty who, for some reason, chose to work in his office. What was this? Someone's calculated plan or heavenly intervention? Noah didn't even suspect that just a couple of hours ago this woman, in a completely different guise, was traveling with his ex-wife Evelyn and didn't appear particularly remarkable. Caught in the net of the fatal beauty, Noah completely lost his head and couldn't think of anyone else but Catherine. It's worth mentioning that the new technician did her job excellently. Therefore, she not only flirted but also cleaned the floors, tidied up the windows, and the entrance steps. It was also interesting that the office employees couldn't understand what exactly they liked about Catherine. Essentially, if you think about it, there wasn't anything particularly striking about her, and her face, like that of all normal people, had its microscopic imperfections. But as soon as Catherine looked at someone with her big blue eyes, the interlocutor immediately forgot the essence of the conversation and became an unwitting victim of the cunning temptress. From the outside, it rather resembled a hunting scene, where a slow and graceful predator hypnotizes a lightning-fast rabbit with its cold and lifeless eyes. A week flew by unnoticed, during which there wasn't a day when Evelyn didn't pick up the phone, intending to call Noah. In her soul, there seemed to be a battle between an angel and a demon, planning to take the heart of this pure woman. Of course, Evelyn wanted to save Noah, to warn him. On the other hand, she didn't know exactly what was being discussed in the car salon. Losing sleep and peace, Evelyn began to fear that she wouldn't be able to drive, or worse, she would fall asleep at the wheel. Therefore, on a fine day, she finally decided to call her ex-husband and tell him everything as it was. Since the call wasn't answered the first time, she swallowed her pride and dialed again. And then came Noah's displeased voice. "Hello. What do you want? I think we've settled everything. I don't have any money, don't even ask. And I'm not going to raise someone else's child." For a moment, Evelyn was speechless with indignation. What does the child have to do with it? Especially since Sophia is your daughter and you know that perfectly well. Don't play to the crowd. Do you think I'm listening to you? Yes, I need you. I'm calling for a different reason, actually. Noah smirked. Well, go ahead, spill it. What's this about? You want to work with me or something? Sorry, it's too late. I recently hired a new cleaner. Unless you want to be a janitor, But there's nothing but hassle there: dust, dirt, cigarette butts. And there are always drifters hanging around, so I wouldn't recommend it. You'd be better off with your own donut stand. It took Evelyn great effort to compose herself and finally get to the point of her question. Listen, Noah, I know this sounds strange, but you're in serious danger. A woman is supposed to join your office. She's planning something malicious. And she has an accomplice. I don't know who he is or how he'll assist her. But you need to be vigilant. Noah's response came in a mocking tone. Are you jealous? I bet you've seen me with the new cleaner, huh? Yeah, she's way better than Mia. I'll even promote her now, and who knows, maybe I'll marry such a beauty. Evelyn was taken aback, her face flushed with heat, cold sweat beading on her forehead. Beauty? What beauty? Just an ordinary woman riding in the back of my car with some guy. What are you even talking about? It's like we're speaking different languages. Noah paused for a moment and said, Listen, if that's all, I'm not interested in empty gossip. You already know everything yourself. We have nothing in common, so let's call it quits. And stop keeping tabs on me, who I meet with, cleaners or anyone else. It's my personal business, and you sort out your own personal life. All right, bye. Evelyn didn't get a chance to reply as Noah promptly hung up. A tear slowly rolled down her cheek. What a fool you are, Noah. Well, it's my job to warn you, but then it's up to you. Just don't say where all these problems came from later. Strangely, the conversation with his ex-wife didn't seem to faze Noah much. Generally, he rarely believed anyone, especially those he had somehow offended. And on top of it all, Noah Hunter didn't discount ordinary female jealousy, which sometimes manifested in the most unusual ways. Meanwhile, Catherine was steadily climbing the career ladder. In just 2 weeks, she transformed from a cleaner into a sales department intern. All her colleagues were convinced that Catherine got her position through very close relations with the director. But in reality, it was far from the truth. If the office plankton knew how Catherine achieved success, they wouldn't believe it and would consider it a tale worthy of cheap romance novels. But Catherine truly paved her way not through the bed, but with another tool bestowed upon her by nature. Few knew that there were fortune tellers in Catherine's lineage. Not the kind that deceives, though. No, it all happened on a different level. Her eyes remained her main weapon, piercing through people like X-rays. Rarely could anyone resist that gaze. Usually, people immediately backed down, yielding to the assertive and beautiful woman. It couldn't be called hypnosis because Catherine never asked them to do anything illegal. Yes, and overall, the power of her gaze wasn't mighty enough to control people like puppets. But making them more compliant and malleable, absolutely. Understanding this, Catherine didn't waste her gift and preferred not to use it without a good reason. Her accomplice, Tyler, shared the same view. However, unlike her, he didn't possess such a gift and could only rely on his own abilities. While Catherine rose to become the queen of the office, Tyler dressed as a street vagabond and lurked nearby the company, observing and discreetly jotting down notes in his small notebook. Of course, nobody paid attention to him, as everyone considered street vagabonds as outcasts and didn't want to waste time with them. Nevertheless, this suited Tyler just fine. Soon, he noted down Noah's car plate numbers, studied his daily routine, and even found out his home address. Essentially, in their partnership with Catherine, he served as a cover, studying the target's behavior, pursuing some personal unknown goal. As for Noah, he was completely unsettled by his official passion, Mia, which didn't go unnoticed. Being a sultry brunette, she couldn't understand what had happened. Why did her admirers suddenly stop giving her gifts, inviting her to the movies or restaurants? If previously Noah gifted her a diamond ring or something similar every month, now she could only count on a wilted bouquet of flowers delivered by a courier service. Determined to find out what was going on, Mia made inquiries at the office. And almost immediately she learned about the new employee who had charmed everyone she had the misfortune of encountering. All right, let's see what you're made of, beauty. And what's on your mind there? Probably trying to snag yourself a sweet sugar daddy? Mia muttered, heading to the office. As fate would have it, she had never seen Catherine before and had no idea who she was about to encounter. But when Mia saw Noah's new love interest in person, she couldn't help but laugh. What's so special about her anyway? Where's all this beauty in her? Sure, her eyes are big and expressive. But there's nothing else remarkable. And how does she command everyone here? Mia thought ironically and approached her. At that moment, Catherine was sitting at the table, attentively listening to the senior manager who was mentoring her for future work. Grinning slyly, Mia asked, "So, darling? Are you here to stay or just passing through?" Catherine raised an eyebrow in surprise and looked expressively at Mia. But her charms had no effect on Noah's lover. This happened quite often since all people are different and possess their own strength of will. Mia never considered herself weak, she was accustomed to fighting for her own happiness. Did she waste so much time trying to get Noah divorced from Evelyn? After all, it was Mia who suggested the lover the DNA test trick, assuming that a repeat examination would likely not be appointed in court. That little slut Evelyn is unlikely to figure it out beforehand. Understanding that she couldn't sweet-talk Noah's mistress, Catherine noticeably backed off. "Yes, I'm only here for a short while, Mia. I plan to build a career at Mr. Hunter's company." "It's very important to me," the intern said with marked respect. What was most remarkable was that Catherine still cleaned the floors. True, she did it when no one was in the office, so as not to compromise herself or Noah, who had appointed her as an intern. The businessman himself understood. The stubborn cleaner deliberately waited for him to leave the office to eliminate the possibility of any kind of close interaction or other subtle hints on his part. However, this only spurred Noah on, awakening the hunter's instinct and giving him a new taste of life. But Catherine's demonstrative subservience had no effect on Mia. Mia immediately understood. The cunning beauty had decided to manipulate her to keep her from encroaching on her space in the office. So Mia hesitated for a moment, then said, "Listen, dear, I think you need to go wipe the steps at the entrance, they're too dirty. Oh, and you can start your internship a little later. I don't think there are any objections, right?" Catherine smiled understandingly and immediately went to carry out the orders of the boss's mistress. Mia watched her with a mocking glance, then turned to the department head. So, she needs to stop her internship for now. She shouldn't be idling around. Who will clean the floors then? Let her work when there's a lot less cleaning to do. At that moment, Mrs. Anderson awkwardly noted that it was Mr. Hunter's personal directive. Mia firmly waved her hand. "I said she won't be interning anymore. I think my word is enough for you." Mrs. Anderson nodded in agreement and didn't push the unpleasant situation further. Why argue with the boss's mistress when it's still uncertain whose side he'll take? Perhaps Catherine will suffer such a fiasco at this stage that she won't be able to recover, while Mia has been Mr. Hunter's favorite for several months now, and her chances are much higher. While passions were boiling in the office, Evelyn's life remained practically unchanged. Except that she finally found peace of mind. Now she was no longer worried about Noah's problems, as her ex-husband had been warned about them and had to decide for himself what to do next. Just like before, Evelyn went on calls. Sometimes even with Sophia. When there was no one to stay with her daughter, she took her along, showing her the city and interesting places. Sometimes Evelyn deliberately chose a route to make it interesting for the girl. For example, she could easily take a shortcut and drive through the city center. But instead, she deliberately went to the waterfront so Sophia could admire the beautiful view of the river shimmering in the midday sun. Despite her friend Rose's skepticism, there hadn't been any significant changes in Evelyn's personal life. Well, once she even tried to meet someone online by registering on a dating site. But after seeing a few candidates who showed up for dates with track marks on their arms and the scent of alcohol, she realized she wasn't ready for that kind of dating scene. Moreover, Evelyn was occupied with preparing Sophia for school. Even while driving, she would pose various logical puzzles for her daughter to solve. She also taught her to read shop signs and anything else that caught her eye. In addition to all this, Sophia attended a tutor who diligently prepared her for first grade so that the transition to the school routine wouldn't be as painful and shocking. One day, rushing to another call, Evelyn noticed that same passenger who had been conversing with his companion about her ex-husband, Noah. It wouldn't have been anything remarkable except for the appearance of this stranger. The external changes in him were so drastic that Evelyn couldn't help but break by the roadside. Opening the door, she quietly called out to the man. He turned around and recognized Evelyn. The thing was, in such a short time, the man had hit rock bottom and become a street vagrant, ragged clothes, worn-out sneakers that could be asking for porridge at any moment, and a similarly tattered cap on his head. Quite the transformation, indeed. "Listen, I don't know your name, but perhaps you need help?" Evelyn cautiously began. The man, noticeably flustered, then quietly replied, "No, thank you. Don't mind me. I'm sorry, it's not what you think, I'm not a beggar. It's something else." Evelyn paused for a moment, then nodded her head and offered the man to join her. "Please, have a seat. I won't take much of your time. It's about that conversation fragment I overheard with your spouse. Back in the car. Remember when I drove you to the hotel?" He didn't argue and immediately said, "Of course, I remember. I recognized you right away. My name is Tyler. Tyler Pearson. Does my last name ring a bell for you?" Evelyn shook her head. "No, it doesn't. Should it?" He grinned. "Well, our father was a real titan in the business world. He taught many the trade, helped many get on their feet. Even Noah Hunter got warmed under his wing. Catherine and I didn't particularly delve into the business then. She was into tourism, and I was into auto racing and other nonsense. We're twins, brother and sister." "Seriously?" Evelyn gasped. Tyler nodded solemnly. "Yes, you see, we thought it would always be like that. Dad would protect, pay, cover expenses. And then Dad was no more. By the time we went to the notary, we found out that Father's inheritance didn't go to just anyone, but to this guy, Noah, who was our dad's right hand. Catherine was abroad at the time and had no idea what happened. And when she returned, we realized we were left with nothing. Somehow Noah forged documents and directed the tax authorities at us. I even had to spend 4 years behind bars. Catherine patiently waited for me all that time. She was afraid to confront Noah alone. Luckily, he didn't know us personally. You see? Since birth, my sister had abilities she believed she inherited from our grandmother. And recently, Catherine decided it was time to seek revenge. Of course, we changed our last name so the scoundrel wouldn't track us down, and we came to the city." Evelyn listened to Tyler's story in disbelief. Could such a thing really happen? Did she really not know her husband? And Noah, it turns out, earned his wealth through dishonest means. Deciding not to hide the truth from Tyler, she told him everything as it was. "I'm sorry, of course. The thing is, Noah is my ex-husband too. He deceived me as well. Left me with nothing, along with our child, and went off to his mistress. I think it's fair to tell you this up front. I warned him, but Noah didn't take my words seriously. I won't interfere with you." Tyler smiled sympathetically at Evelyn. "Yes, I understand. He's quite the scoundrel. Don't worry, we won't harm him. We'll do something in the same style as he pulled off the scam with our father. No blood, no violence. Let him, like me, spend some time in jail and reflect on who he is in this life." "So, you're not a vagabond then?" Evelyn asked with a smile. Tyler chuckled. "No, not at all. It's all a facade. Wigs and all that. We just need to keep an eye on Noah so that he doesn't expose Catherine. Though, she's a master of her craft. She'll soon gain access to his office and get to his work safe. That's when he'll face punishment, because guys like him always have violations in their business dealings." For some inexplicable reason, Evelyn suddenly felt a strong surge of excitement. No, not for herself, of course. for this pair, brother and sister, who had decided to challenge her cunning husband. As it turned out later, Evelyn's premonition didn't deceive her this time. Mia was to blame for everything, who, seeing Catherine as a rival, decided to strike back. To reveal her true nature, Mia bought a set of hidden cameras and discreetly installed them around the office perimeter without her suitor's knowledge. Being on the same wavelength as Catherine, she understood the crafty girl was clearly hiding something else. What lies behind the kisses and all this romantic fluff? It took about 3 days of waiting before something interesting appeared on the recordings. Watching the video once again, Mia gasped in astonishment and grabbed her head. It was clearly visible on the recording how Catherine, taking advantage of Noah's absence under the guise of a cleaner, entered his office. There, assuming the role of the owner, she approached the massive safe and began to inspect it. Then she pulled out a piece of paper from her pocket with a cipher written on it. Most likely, Noah had been careless enough to open the safe for Catherine, thinking he could trust her. Soon enough, with a slight click, the safe opened, and Catherine began to rummage through the documents, displaying the demeanor of a true expert, indicating her high qualification in business papers. Since the footage was in real-time mode, Mia didn't waste any time and immediately called Noah, asking him to come to the office with her. At first, the businessman responded to this idea with a hint of skepticism. "Well, why should I go there? I've just come from there." "So, Catherine is cleaning in my office. What's the big deal?" "Well, we'll see how she cleans there. I think you'll be able to see a lot of interesting things today," Mia said with a smile and hung up the phone. 10 minutes later, they were already entering the office with Noah, where Catherine was just carefully examining the contents of her cunning boss's safe. Seeing the cleaner engaged in such a delicate task, Noah paled and punched the door frame with his fist. "So, what are you doing here? And I, the fool, believed you blindly. And you were just playing innocent. Dropping hints left and right, but what's this?" Catherine flinched and pressed herself against the wall. "I'm sorry, Noah, but it's not what you think," the cleaner tried to justify herself. But Noah already felt like he was in charge again, thanks to Mia regaining control over him. Meanwhile, Catherine feverishly pondered what to do next. "I think it's time to call the police, so they can deal with you and throw you behind bars for, let's say, 5 years or more," Noah said confidently, intending to intimidate the poor cleaner even more. Mia immediately rebuked him. "No, we don't need the police. They might dig into our papers. We clearly need to come up with something else. I suggest we take her out of town and drop her off somewhere without money or documents. Let her wander in all directions." "That's an interesting thought. Yes, we should take her somewhere a couple 100 kilometers away, deep into the wilderness. And let her figure it out from there." Noah compliantly agreed. Realizing what awaited her, Catherine paled and pressed her back against the wall. Noah smiled. All right, it's over. You won't have a place in my company anymore." At that moment, sirens could be heard from the street, signaling approaching police cars. Noah startled and cast a worried glance towards Mia. "Is that the police? Who called them?" Mia shook her head in fear. "It's not me, I'm not that stupid yet." At that moment, Catherine suddenly stepped away from the wall and laughed loudly. "Well, caught you, lovebirds? Did I lure you here skillfully? You thought I was working alone, but I have an assistant, my brother, Tyler Pearson. Does that name ring a bell for you?" Noah paled and grabbed his throat, trying to loosen his tie. "Yes, it does. Are you his children? I heard they disappeared somewhere." Meanwhile, Catherine continued to press the frightened businessman. "No, they didn't disappear. I am, actually, Archer Pearson's daughter. Yes, that's right, the one you left penniless, along with your wife, Evelyn. Isn't that so?" You scoundrel," hissed Mia, but Catherine paid no attention to her threats. "Now, Noah, you'll answer for everything. I caught you red-handed with Mia as bait, and you naively thought I knew nothing about hidden cameras. Ha! Tyler has been monitoring the office the whole time and knew that surveillance service employees recently visited. He talked to them and immediately found out what was going on. You beast. Yes, I caught you with my own hands. Noah growled in powerless anger. At that moment, the office door swung open and the room was immediately filled with people in police uniforms. A few minutes later, handcuffs clicked on Noah and Mia's wrists. This happened after the officer examined the contents of the company director's safe. And indeed, there was something to see. Creative accounting, skillfully executed real estate scams, and defrauding shareholders. Catherine smirked and winked at her brother, dressed in beggar's clothes. It was only now that Noah realized he had become a victim of those very heirs he had once deceitfully stolen paternal fortunes from. Evelyn learned about all this from the television news broadcast the next morning. Little Sophia watched the TV screen with appetite while having breakfast. And when her father suddenly appeared on the screen, she exclaimed joyfully, Mom, look! They're showing Daddy here." At first, Evelyn didn't believe it, but when she approached closer, her astonishment knew no bounds. "Well, he got caught, then," she said with a smile, wiping away an involuntary tear. As it turned out, the Pearson siblings skillfully deceived Noah and Mia, who thought they were in control. Accustomed to mocking people and feeling like true kings, they found themselves swiftly investigated for Noah Hunter's case, and soon he and Mia found themselves in a courtroom. Noah's mistress faced a suspended sentence, but he himself awaited a very harsh punishment, serving the full term in one of the country's strictest prisons. To Evelyn's surprise, justice touched not only the late Archer Pearson's heir but also herself. Suddenly, she found herself once again the owner of the house that her husband had once taken from her. Mysteriously smiling, Tyler handed her the keys to the house and also gave her a considerable sum of money in an envelope for the inconvenience caused. Looking at him, Evelyn couldn't believe her eyes, thinking it was probably all one big, but very vivid dream, which would soon be interrupted by harsh reality. But no matter how much Evelyn rubbed her eyes and pinched herself on the shoulder, reality remained just that, reflected in Tyler's kind and gentle eyes. In reality, she didn't even suspect that the initiators of her house's return were not strangers at all, but rather the heir of Pearson himself, who felt pity and sympathy for the unfortunate taxi driver, raising her little daughter alone. Unbeknownst to himself, Tyler began to think more and more often about Evelyn. Eventually, he mustered the courage to invite her to a restaurant. Naturally, it didn't resemble a romantic date, as little Sophia came along with her mother, turning the outing into another joyful adventure for her. Perhaps at that moment, Evelyn didn't even suspect that this meeting would mark the beginning of a new life. It wasn't about changing jobs or reclaiming the house, it was about Tyler surrounding her with the attention and love she never thought possible in her life with her fraudulent husband. Catherine, Tyler's sister, accepted her brother's choice with understanding and didn't erect barriers in his path. Moreover, she supported Evelyn's candidacy, as she had a keen ability to judge people, especially with her trademark fortune-teller's gaze. 5 months later, the young couple got married, modestly, but tastefully. Just the way Evelyn had once wanted. Only the closest ones were invited. Of course, among them was Rose and some of Evelyn's colleagues from the taxi service. Immediately after the wedding, she resigned from the service and, together with Tyler, opened their own company. Experienced people with the latest model cars handled transportation there. Rumor has it that the business quickly took off, and those who meet Evelyn now hardly remember where she started and how she worked tirelessly in an old yellow car, which once brought her to meet her future husband. Little Sophia attended school, where she showed good results and said that she would soon definitely have a little brother or sister. However, Evelyn and Tyler consider the girl's joy a little premature. Judging by the ultrasound results, Evelyn is expecting twins, which means it's not unlikely that Sophia will have both a little brother and sister in the future.